Hey everyone, so I wanted to cover an interesting dynamic which is the vast majority of people I meet that are involved with Bitcoin feel the same way about when they got involved in Bitcoin and how they feel about Bitcoin and how it's behaving now. And which is interesting because obviously people have gotten involved in Bitcoin at all different points in the last 16 years. And so you would think it would be pretty odd that, everybody would feel similarly. So here's the first thing, the way everybody feels. Everybody feels like they are late to Bitcoin. So just universally. So even if you started running the Bitcoin software 1 week after it was released in 2009, when there was nobody, literally no price to the network, you would have immediately thought, well, dang it, I wish I had started running the Bitcoin client last week, because last week I could get 50 Bitcoin every 10 minutes just by having my computer on. And now that it's been out here for 2 weeks, I have to compete with a bunch of other people, and now I'm only getting 50 Bitcoin every hour instead of every 10 minutes. So even the people who joined right after the launch of Bitcoin, they felt like they were late. They wish they had started a week sooner, or a month sooner, or 6 months sooner. As soon as Bitcoin had a price of 1 penny, people thought they were late. They were like, well, it's already gone from, the very first price of Bitcoin, which is you could buy 1,300 Bitcoin for $1. I think that was the very first price it was listed anywhere, which I think was the Liberty Reserve website or something like that. So immediately, even at a penny per Bitcoin, people thought, oh, I'm late. If I had only bought it before it had a price that was actually a penny or more, they could have gotten dozens or hundreds or even more than 1,000 Bitcoin for a penny. So they thought they were late. And then at every price point from that point forward, everybody thought they were late. So when the price was bouncing around, and let's use the price of 57,000 today and just knock a bunch of zeros off. When the price was between 5 cents and 7 cents, which is, I'm going to draw a corollary to $50,000 to $70,000. When the price was between 5 and 7 cents, everybody thought they were late. They thought if they had only shown up sooner and bought a bunch of Bitcoin earlier, they could have bought way more Bitcoin when the price was less than a cent. And everybody who bought it when Bitcoin was 7 cents felt like they had gotten, made a bad decision, because if they had only waited, the price would have dropped down to 5 cents. And everybody was worried about whether they had bought it at 5 cents or 7 cents. And everybody was speculating online and all this sort of stuff. What should they have all done at a price between 5 and 7 cents? Is buy as much Bitcoin as they could possibly buy. Like, it didn't matter if you bought it at the worst possible time when the price was 7.4 cents, the equivalent today of $74,000, 7.4 cents, and the price immediately dropped to 5 cents, you still would have been way better off than virtually anyone else in the world today if you had just bought it at the worst time way back in 2010 and 2011. Okay, so that's the first thing. Everybody thinks they're late. Well, the same thing has happened at every price point. As the price went from, 5 to 7 cents, it went up to 50 to 70 cents. People felt the same way. They had bought at the wrong time because they bought at 70 cents a Bitcoin and not at 50 cents a Bitcoin. And everybody was all worried about whether they were buying at 50 cents or 70 cents and all that sort of stuff, when the truth is all of them should have bought as much Bitcoin as they could, even at 70 cents a coin. The same thing is true between $5 and $7. Everybody was worried if they had paid $7 that they had overpaid, that they had gotten in too late, that they had wished they had bought it for $5, on and on and on. Same thing between $50 and $70. Everybody was worried they were late. Everybody thought they had just, wished they had shown up earlier. Everybody in retrospect wishes they had bought way more Bitcoin between $50 and $70, and on and on and on, between $500 and $700. And between $5,000 and $7,000, which was the first time I got involved, was the cheapest Bitcoin I ever bought was $6,400. So, I actually remember the whole conversations, Twitter conversations and everything of people saying, oh, but I bought it for $6,400, but then it went down to $5,000, and I really wish I had waited, and I wish it, and then retrospect, a couple years goes by, and everybody thinks, well, I just wish I had bought more. Like, it doesn't matter if it was, 5,000 or 7,000, they would make roughly 10 times their money if they had just bought more Bitcoin, period, at any price. So why do I bring this up? Well, because the same thing is happening right now, and the same thing is going to happen in the future. So in the future, somebody at some point in the future is going to come to you, and instead of zeros being knocked off of the current price, a zero will end up being added to the current price. So what does that look like? it looks like a price between, call it $500,000 and $700,000. And people will be doing the exact same thing. People will be worried that they bought it for $700,000 and now it's $500,000 and they bought it at the wrong time and they wish they had gotten in earlier. You're going to be wishing you had bought a whole lot more Bitcoin at prices now, because you're going to have to decide back up when the price is 500,000 to 700,000. Do you buy more Bitcoin at that price, or do you just sit on what you got because that price is going to seem super expensive to you as compared to today's price and all that sort of stuff? And but in the future, people will say, well, you had it easy. You had it easy because the price was between $55,000 and $70,000, and that is less than 1/10 of the price that's going to be in the future. Even though I think long-term it goes up way more than that, they're going to say, you had it easy because the price was low. Just like people right now would say, well, the people who were, belly aching about whether the price they bought it at was $5 or $7, they had it easy because they could have just bought as much as they wanted for, single-digit dollars. But the truth is, all that matters is percentages. The percentage difference between $7 and $5 is the exact same percentage difference between $700,000 and $500,000, which means to an investor, it feels the exact same way to try to decide, do I buy more Bitcoin at $500,000 or $550,000 or $600,000 or $650,000 or $700,000? It feels the exact same way to them, because the percentages are all the same, as it feels to you trying to decide, do I buy more Bitcoin at $57,000 or $60,000 or $65,000? And if I bought Bitcoin at $72,000 or $74,000, it hadn't even hit $74,000, so you can't have bought it that high. So let's call it $72,000, $73,000. If you bought Bitcoin at that level, you're thinking, oh, but I could have bought it cheaper if I had just waited. And the truth is, everybody in history would have been better off whenever they had bought Bitcoin if they had just bought a lot more, and that historically has always been the consistent theme. And if you really are worried about buying at the wrong time, just dollar cost average. Just set, Coinbase to buy the same amount of Bitcoin or the same dollar value of Bitcoin every week or every month. Ideally every week. You don't want to be waiting every month, but whatever it is, $100, $1,000, $10,000, whatever it is, every week, just buy the same amount US dollar value of Bitcoin. And when Bitcoin's expensive, you'll be buying a little less Bitcoin. And when Bitcoin's cheaper, you'll be buying a little more Bitcoin for that, it's called dollar cost averaging, DCA, dollar cost averaging. Personally, I like to just buy Bitcoin whenever I have the money and the conviction to do so, because I don't have the patience to dollar cost average. And it keeps you, if you do dollar cost average, you have to make a bunch of additional decisions, like how long are you going to dollar cost average? What time period, and how much are you going to put in up front versus dollar cost average over time, and all that sort of stuff. And it's just easier for me to just pull the trigger. If I know I want to buy something that's a financial asset, I just pull the trigger. So I'm not trying to time the market, because timing the market basically never works. So all that to say, to summarize, if you're wondering, when is the right time to buy Bitcoin? Just remember, there's never a bad time to buy Bitcoin, and there's never a bad price to buy Bitcoin. And that in the future, when there's a zero added to all the prices that exist today, somebody will be telling you the exact same thing I'm telling you right now, which is, I wish I had bought as much Bitcoin as I possibly could have bought at any price between $5,000 and $7,000 or $7,400, if you want to be exact, as compared to, knocking a zero off the highest price it's ever been. At any price between $5,000 and $7,400, I would be roughly 10 times better off if I had just bought at any of those prices. What did I do between those prices? I worried about whether the price was too expensive. I worried if I should buy now, if I should wait. And the result is, while I did buy some Bitcoin, I wish I had bought a lot more Bitcoin. But the reason I didn't is because $5,000 and $6,000 and $7,000 all seemed really expensive, because that's the way it is with any asset that goes up. It seems really expensive until it goes up a bunch more, and then the price that you could have bought it at seems like it was cheap, and you wish you had bought more at a cheaper price. So that's the quick story of Bitcoin. If you're wondering, if you're wondering if you should buy more Bitcoin, and you're worried about the price and you're worried about timing, just realize that has been the case with everyone who has ever bought Bitcoin. If you're worried that you're late to Bitcoin, and that you don't want to buy right before the party ends, and most of the financial upside was before you got there and all that, just realize that virtually everyone who's ever bought Bitcoin felt just like you. Just like you, they all feel the exact same way wishing they had bought it a lot sooner and thinking they're late to the party. So everybody thinks they're late to the party, including me. When I was buying Bitcoin in 2017, it felt like I was very late to the party. And then obviously the price I was buying at was a tiny fraction of the price that it is today. So hopefully that helps give you some perspective. And just remember that the vast majority of the world, 90%, 95%, whatever it is, of the world has never owned Bitcoin, but will at some point. And they will be buying Bitcoin at a price substantially higher than today's price. And those people will also feel like they are late to Bitcoin. And you can either be one of the early late people to Bitcoin or the late people to Bitcoin, but you're going to feel the same regardless. And at some point, it's good to adopt it before it's the future monetary system of the world, because once Bitcoin is the future monetary system of the world, then indeed it'll still be a great asset to own. It just won't have the same economic upside. So hopefully that's helpful. As always, I'm here for anything you need. Thanks.